families, creating a lifetime of memories. Sadly, some families are denied these important moments due to the sad practice of alienation. These are families divided.
Hello, everyone, and welcome again to Families Divided TV. It is quite common for an alienating parent to be a narcissist. Dealing with a narcissistic alienating parent can be debilitating, confusing, frustrating, and overwhelming. In Kenny's experience, most of that anger and frustration stems from the hurt the parent feels for how they were treated during the relationship. It becomes commingled into the fear for their child. The reason for that is they are not aware of the part they played in attracting the narcissist into their life. If you're struggling to make sense of a narcissist or want to understand why you keep ending up with one and how that is affecting your ability to parent, this presentation is for you. By the end, you'll have the knowledge to understand what created your attraction and, more importantly, how to stop attracting them into your life so you can be the best advocate possible for your alienated child. And that's what matters. We're happy to have Kenny Weiss back with us again. He had a great presentation before. We're looking forward to it. And we're going to be back with him right after these messages.
Divorce and co-parenting are a major life interruption for families, especially the kids, but also for parents and grandparents. And it's even worse in blame-filled, high-conflict cases. When parents engage in alienation by turning the kids against the other parent or grandparents, kids suffer. They're denied the opportunity to build the 4 big skills necessary for future resilience. New Ways for Families online class can help. Parents learn to use our popular BIF and EAR skills to calm the conflict and stop the hostile emails and texts. And we even have a class for kids and parents to learn together. Research shows a 75% improvement in joint parental decision-making after this course is taken, plus overall improvements for kids' well-being. Don't wait to make this affordable investment in your children's future and improve your well-being too. Start learning new ways for your family today at conflictplaybook.com.
In many cases of parental alienation and adult-child estrangement, the disconnect is created by a narcissistic ex-partner who purposefully and manipulatively does everything possible to damage your relationship with your child. That was certainly the case and true for me in my situation. But there's a common problem that I see for those of us who are alienated and estranged and have a narcissistic ex-partner. It seems that all the blame is placed at the narcissist's feet. Now, I don't want to wipe away the impact of their behavior, but if we ever truly want to heal and forgive and be in the best place possible to reconnect with our children, should they ever come back into our life, it's been my experience we have to drop this victim stance. We need to begin living in truth and taking responsibility for our part. So today I'm going to talk about the 7 ways we attracted that narcissist into our life and how that ultimately played a part in the estrangement. So I'm going to go through the 7 ways we did that and then tie in how to address it, but also how that, unbeknownst to us, in many cases, well, in my experience, all cases, has played a part in the estrangement that's happened. So let's get started with the first aspect of this. It's our unhealed childhood trauma that created the attraction. And this can be one of the difficult things. People are, I didn't go through trauma. No, my childhood was great. We all have that view of childhood, but parents are human. No parent is perfect. Every parent makes mistakes. Every parent makes hurtful mistakes. We all leave childhood with trauma. And here's something even more important. We will never, ever get in a relationship with a narcissist unless our childhood had a lot of dysfunction and chaos in it. That creates the attraction. It will not happen if your childhood did not have dysfunction and chaos in it. And so this creates what I call the worst day cycle. I don't have time to get into that. I wrote about it in my book, and in the last presentation that Elaine has been so gracious to ask me to do, I'm going to get deeper into the worst day cycle. But what it creates, what this cycle creates, is basically a brain and body addiction to relive the trauma of our childhood against ourselves. I know that sounds far-fetched. Again, in the last presentation, I'll dig in and show you how that happens. To show how it happened in my case, I had a very emotionally distant father who was very angry. He was beat to death as a kid. He never hit us, but my parents were 16 and 18 when they got married, 21 and 23 with 4 kids. He'd just come out of childhood being abused. He didn't, he's trying to build a family and a career. And back then, we just didn't talk about these things or deal with these traumas. So he had a lot of stored rage that would come out at me. I also had an older brother who took a lot of that stored rage, and then he passed it down to me. He used to literally just beat the heck out of me. Well, that created the mental, emotional, and physical and chemical addiction to be attracted to my first wife, who was a narcissist. And she was both physically and verbally abusive. So I relived the abuse from my childhood with the attraction to my first wife. This is true for all of us. My second wife was also narcissistic. I'd done a lot of work on myself, but I hadn't quite gotten there. And this leads in to what traps us, one of the things I'll get to in a minute. But I'll never forget the first day I met her. I was standing outside the restaurant waiting for her to show up, and I turn, and she's about 20 feet away. And as soon as I saw her, I felt hit, and I took a step back and I went, oh my God, she's the devil. We know from the beginning, we see the signs, but because of our childhood trauma, our baseline gets set here, what we think is normal, when normal is here. And so we have that experience, but we minimize it because we had to. Our brain and body gets addicted to this type of behavior. And so what's the devil? Big deal. I can handle that. Now, is she the devil? No, I don't. I personally don't believe any narcissist. I'm not a fan of chastising narcissists and just saying they're terrible people. What creates narcissism is severe childhood trauma. It's not genetic. That's not how genes work. And so I have tremendous empathy for them. I don't condone their actions. I hold them accountable and responsible for their mistreatment of others. But I have tremendous sadness. And so I personally, it doesn't work for me at least, to cast them aside, also because to do that is a very narcissistic position. It elevates us above them. And many people don't realize when they do that, it's a false empowerment. I'll get into that a little bit more in a minute. So that's the first thing to recognize is, and this has played a part in the alienation, the worst day cycle, and we're unaware of how our attraction to this person has created a dysfunctional, chaotic environment that our children grew up in. Number 2, we become whatever the narcissist wants. Because of our childhoods, we become like chameleons. In my case, with my first wife, I changed the way I dress. I was playing pro hockey at the time. She said I should quit. I quit. The more we try to appease the narcissist, we're trying to get them to like us and be kind. And we don't recognize that our kindness, I'll get to that in a little bit, is actually a manipulative dynamic. It keeps us from showing who we really are. And so behaviors like these create an internal self-deception in us that we're the nice one. And in some instances, we want to change, but the disempowerment we learned in childhood taught us that we could not voice our desires. Many people that are attracted to narcissists can't express their needs and wants. They get trampled. They can't say no. They can't defend themselves. And this is part of that chameleon aspect of trying to be nice. So when we pick a narcissist who will demand the change, but we never mention our part of how we want them to address issues, we can then blame them for making us change. For instance, I remember my first wife where, this happened, she created the alienation, and we went to 5 different counselors, and each time, because she was always saying I was the problem, well, we'd go in, and after a couple of weeks, the counselor would say, wow, he's doing really good. What about you? And on the way home, she'd say, we need a new counselor. Well, there's an example of the chameleon not being nice, not standing up for my needs and wants, and go, well, wait a minute here. Maybe we need to address these issues. And so that's a manipulative, disempowered dynamic that we're choosing a victim stance. And that's something we pass down to our children as well. So number 3 is we think we can fix them. I would always say, I remember for a very long time when all the women I was attracted to, there would be a common theme, and you probably can connect to this. You're looking at them and you're going, wow, I can see this wall, or I can see their fear, but behind that is this really sweet person. And that's the false empowerment that we use to think we can bring out that, because narcissists are very charming and all, they have that side of them. That's how they, part of their dysfunction is they use that to entrap us. But we see right from the beginning that wall, but we ignore it. And we create a fantasy of what we think is behind that wall. And we attach to that. And that gives us, from that victim position, because who they are is the wall, and they're victimizing us. And so we take the disempowered victim position and thinking we can fix them and bring out that sweet, kind person. And so we ignore the truth of who they are, and we turn them into fantasy of who they could be. We see their potential through their flaws. And as I said, we do this to gain power by being the ones who can fix them. Trying to fix the narcissist is what we use to help hide the disempowered, unhealed pain from our childhood. Just like the parent, my mom was an alcoholic, and my dad's anger. So just like the parents I couldn't get to stop being angry or stop drinking, and we couldn't get them to heal or love us and give us the attention that we deserve, we are unaware that it's a learned, subconscious, manipulative attempt to get our power back. So what we have here is a dual power dynamic. Everyone can see the narcissist, is vying for power. Most people never see that the one attracted is also, but the narcissist is after power from what's called the falsely empowered position. Like, they can never be wrong. Like, they're just bullies. Well, we're pursuing power, but from the disempowered victim position. It's a mutual fight for power that we both pursue, but from polar opposite ends, right? Number 4, we do everything we can to control their actions and behavior to get them to stop. We throw fits, we complain, we throw it in their face. Some of us are aggressive about it or passive aggressive. Those who are severely disempowered, they're the ones who do it silently or passive aggressively. I remember we'd been married about 6 months, and we went out with some of her friends, and I used that occasion to disparage her because her friends are there. She couldn't attack me. Man, did I pay for that on the ride home, and for a long time after that. But that's a very passive aggressive, manipulative way. I didn't know how, because of my childhood. I didn't know how to stand up for myself. I didn't know how to ask for my needs and wants. I didn't know how to protect myself. And so from that victim position, I tried to gain power over her, throw her under the bus, just like they do to us, all the disparaging comments. Well, here I'm doing it, but I look like the nice guy. all right, because I don't treat her that way on a daily basis. So these are the covert manipulative dynamics that we employ as well, all right? So number 5 is we keep going back to them, but we keep blaming them. We are completely unaware that it's our childhood that has created this compulsion to self-victimize. It's all we know. And so I'm not here to blame us or point the finger at us. You can't be blamed for doing something you were completely unaware of doing. You're just doing the best you can. Now, the only time that changes is in a moment like this. Once we gain new information, this is the first time in our life we actually have a choice, because we never did. We're just living under these false dynamics that we learned in childhood, completely unaware that they're dysfunctional and chaotic and perfectly imperfect. Well, now we run into new information, and now is the first time we can go, whoa, maybe I need to look at this. Maybe I can make a different choice and go become an expert in this, and now I can have a different outcome. And so I don't know that I'd ever blame somebody if they just negate everything I'm saying and don't look at it. But this is the first time we are responsible. Because once we gain new information, if we choose to ignore it and go right back to the victimizing, destructive behavior, then we have consciously made the choice, and therefore we can no longer blame anyone or anything else. Now we must take full responsibility of what we're doing. So how does this happen? Well, society has never told us that it's a two-sided dynamic, that both parties have a responsibility. I mean, it's pretty simple. Nobody gets in our life unless we say yes. I mean, many people are attracted to us, ask us out on dates, and some we say yes to and some we say no to. We can never run away from the responsibility that we said yes to this person. And we need to look at that. We need to take responsibility. Why did I pick this person out of all the available people? That's about me. That's not about them. So because society primarily teaches and advocates a victim position. And so it doesn't teach us that if one person has these perfect imperfections like the narcissist does, there must be compatible perfect imperfections in the other person as well. And the unhealed pain of both is what has drawn these perfect imperfections together. So blaming the other side, not taking any responsibility, elevating ourselves as the perfect one who has no responsibility for the way we treat. You hear how narcissistic that is? The reason we do it, it's part of the worst day cycle and our subconscious attempt to stay in the victim position. It's what we learned. It was the only way we learned to navigate the dysfunction and chaos of our childhood, was that we had to be covert in the way we tried to express any type of power in the family or a sense of self. Now, again, because society doesn't teach us, we're not to blame for that. We didn't know. We did the best we could. But now with new information, we have a choice to dig deeper and learn how that happens. Number 6, especially once the relationship ends, or even as it's getting more and more toxic, we become obsessed with figuring them out. We Google narcissism. We join groups about narcissism. We read books about narcissism, watch videos that are all about how terrible the narcissist is. And we critique everything they do. And we talk to as many people as possible about the relationship and how awful this person is. We obsess over them, and we make figuring them out our sole focus. And this happens because as a child, we could never understand why we couldn't get the love and care. So if we could just understand the narcissist, we could feel empowered. Just like I couldn't get my mom to stop drinking, I couldn't get my dad to engage with us. And so I learned to become obsessed with the other person. It's a very healthy, childlike defense mechanism. It's a very dysfunctional adult mechanism that boomerangs back against us and keeps us stuck in the pain and reliving the self-victimization. So the truth is, we don't recognize that what we're really trying to do is understand the pain we experienced in our childhood. That's what created the attraction. It's why we picked them. Therefore, we're unaware that we are manipulatively pursuing the narcissist to make sense of our childhood pain. This is part of the recovery process. We need to get into reality that, and this might be difficult, but I tell you, when you find this, that person is a gift. I dedicated my book to both of my ex-wives. If it were not for them and not for myself doing the work, I could not have saved my life. They showed me the manipulative, perfectly imperfect parts of myself, the aspects in my trauma that even though I'd worked with professionals, I couldn't find a solution to and I couldn't heal from. And that's why we pick these people. We're picking them as a mirror into us to show us what we need to heal in ourselves. And once you do that work and you get to the other side of it, it's like I always say, I adore those women more than I ever did when we were married, ever. Because the gift that they gave me to see, learn about, and forgive and love and accept my perfect imperfections and the part I played. That's the only way you'll get set free from this pain, is if you find that and you do the work to find that. And finally, number 7, society has taught us to deceive ourselves by not taking ownership of our part. I touched on this a minute ago. As I said, society doesn't tell us that people only come into our lives if we allow them to. So instead, it focuses on blaming the narcissist and celebrating the role of being the victim. Because what does the victim give us? Power, attention, and care. We just post on Facebook and we get 100 friends. Oh my God, you're the best, you're the best. It's a great way for us to covertly, subconsciously, try and get the care we never received in our childhood. Because as the victim, the unspoken inference is that I'm nicer and I'm kinder, and therefore I'm better than the narcissist, which in itself, as I said, is a very narcissistic way to view ourselves. It lacks truth and personal responsibility for the part we played. The truth is, those of us attracted to a narcissist are struggling with very high levels of low self-esteem and shame. And so the solution we were taught, I want to say that again, the solution we were taught by our parents in childhood is that we must control and manipulate, just like the narcissist, but from the disempowered victim position. And society enables this by promoting and celebrating the victim position, and which keeps alive our self-deception and robs us of taking ownership and ultimately getting set free and living happy and no longer choosing these people. So now, think of these 7 behaviors. Think of the dynamics I just described. Now, look at the situation with your kids. Our kids learn by modeling. Our child has learned from both of us to avoid living in truth and taking responsibility. They're modeling. Our estranged child is modeling many of the covert manipulative behaviors we used with our partner. If we want to create the best chance possible to reconnect with our kids, we must get into reality about these truths. We must take ownership of our part. We must do the work to heal the pain from our childhood. Take ownership of our perfect imperfections. Learn to love and forgive ourselves. That, oh my gosh, man, it's not much fun being perfectly imperfect. But when I do the work, I can live in peace and go, I'm human. I'm limited. And, you know, for those that are spiritual, they recognize I'm not a God and I will make mistakes. And it's the essence of grace to find that position. So for our children to reconnect with us, remember, how do children learn? By modeling. So even if they're not in our presence, we have to model for them how to heal, how to live in truth, and how to take responsibility. I have seen this happen with clients I've worked with, and even within myself, because I've had periods of connection and disconnection with my kids. When I've had discoveries about the part I played, all of a sudden I get a random text, phone call. Like, it's insane how the world works as we heal, and the energy that that creates and how that transfers out into the world. And I know that sounds crazy, but I've seen it through all my years of personal recovery and working with people. Things shift, things change. And our goal to survive all of this is to become as safe and as empowered and live a life in a way that shows our kids how to get out of it. Now, I don't want to turn this into sales pitch, but I have books, I have classes, and I work with people and couples to help them heal all of this. It doesn't have to be me. It doesn't have to be my programs, but I urge you, pick a teacher or counselor or therapist that you really like and trust, who has the knowledge, skills, and tools that you need to heal and begin that personal recovery journey immediately. It is incumbent on us to take responsibility, live in truth, and heal our perfect imperfections. So to wrap things up, the only way I've found to navigate the unrelenting sadness and hopelessness and loss of relationship with our kids is to be able to look at ourselves and ask one question. This is the question, at least I always ask myself, is, am I doing everything I can to be the parent my children need if they ever come back into my life? And if they don't, for whatever reason, if they don't ever come back into my life again, on my deathbed, can I look back at all the years and say to myself, I did the work. I'm proud that I never gave up on myself or my kids. Or am I going to throw this all away? But on my deathbed, can I live with that? Remember, once we have new information, if we choose not to do it. So that's why I always look at that, something way out in the future, because it's easy to put something off now, but look in the future. We've all had those experiences where we had an opportunity and we chose not to take it. And then for years, we really destroy ourselves. Why didn't I do it then? So that's the other question. 10, 20, 30 years from now, on your deathbed, can you look back and feel like, yeah, I did it. I tried. I'm okay. Some things are just bigger than me. Wasn't to be figured out, but man, I did the right thing. I was the parent my kids needed to be, whether they saw it or not. I can live and die with that truth. So to accomplish that, I don't focus on my kids. I don't try and figure them out. I don't focus on my ex, but I focus on only the one person I can control, myself. I still talk weekly with my mentor. We're constantly. Yesterday, I got in touch with him because I found some things. I'm like, hey, do you have more time? I need like 2 hours, and sometimes he shares his stuff, but I've been just working on a lot of things, and I'm constantly facing my self-deception. I'm constantly facing the part I play in every aspect of my life, and it never ends. And from those conversations, I put plans in place to address my perfect imperfections so that on my deathbed, I can live with the outcome. I can go, hey, I did my part. So that's just my reality and my experience, that the best way to handle these overwhelmingly difficult experiences, go become an expert. Go work on yourself. Stop focusing on them and trying to figure them out. take all that energy, invest it in yourself, and that's the best way to reconnect with your kids. So I hope you do that, and I hope that helped you.
In our next episode, Zach Flood discusses unwitting accomplices, interacting with the professionals that are supposed to be helping.